During World War II, the United States became the largest producer of aircraft that the world has ever seen, or will almost certainly ever see again. On the eve of the war, the American Aircraft Factory was a quaint job shop, where aircraft were virtually handmade by the craft method abandoned by the American automobile factory a generation before. Within just a few years, it would be transformed into the largest single industry in the world. Among American industries, the aviation industry rose to first place from 41st place. Prior to World War II, the American aircraft industry ranked 5th in the world, but during the war it became the global leader, producing twice as many aircraft as the United Kingdom or the Soviet Union, and 1.6 times as many aircraft as the three major Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan combined. According to the Civil Aeronautics Administration Statistical Handbook, America's aircraft factories produced over 324,000 aircraft between 1939 and 1945, including 304 military aircraft. The rate of increase in the output of the American aircraft industry is hard to comprehend. In 1939, a total of 921 aircraft were built in the United States. In 1944, the industry reached a peak annual production of over 96,000. The American aircraft industry produced 880,000 aircraft for the U.S. Army Air Forces, America's principal air arm, and 73,711 aircraft for the U.S. Navy. American industry alone built 38,811 for the British Commonwealth Air Forces from 1940, while British industry itself produced just 131,549 from 1939. The American aircraft industry was and is composed of four relatively distinct groups. First and foremost are the airframe manufacturers, which were and are the largest component of the industry in terms of employment, dollar volume, and sheer weight of their output. Second are the engine manufacturers, which were and are responsible for the single most complex component of any powered aircraft. Third are the subcontractors that provide some assemblies and components. Finally, there are the vendors of accessory and small parts, from rivets and cables to turrets and shock absorbers. During World War II, the largest airframe manufacturers in the American aircraft industry were Bell, Boeing, Consolidated Vultee, Curtiss, a component of Curtiss-Wright, Douglas, Grumman, Lockheed, Martin, North American Aviation, and Republic. What is the machine behind you?
CNC mill. CNC mill.
CFD mill?
CNC.
CNC?
Yep.
What do you use it for? To mill out
parts.
exact?
Mill it out parts. Yep.
The Aircorps Aviation refurbishing facility is located in the industrial park of Bemidji. They would have liked to have gone to the Bemidji airport, but at the time when they needed the space, there wasn't any available at the airport, and today there still isn't. So they're at Industrial Park. The plan is someday to move out of Industrial Park and be located over at the Bemidji airport. Then they can leave the wings on at least. Otherwise they have to truck it over to the Industrial Park with the wings off. What are you checking for? One of the questions that most aviators ask today is, what happened to all these airplanes? Well, a lot went to the Arizona desert and some were destroyed. But there were a few purchased by people like you and I, and they wanted to have them refurbished. There were several places around the country like this facility, Aircorps Aviation, that did just that. It's actually quite remarkable how good a shape these aircraft are, consider they're being made in the 1940s and 1945. And then when Aircorps Aviation refurbishes an airplane, they occasionally find a part that's corroded beyond use and a new one has to be milled out. When they finish the airplane, it is better and newer than when it came out of the factory in 1945. And you'll see that as we go along here today. Next, we'll take a walk through the plant with Eric to see how they rebuild these aircraft.
Hi, my name is Eric Hokuff, and this is Aircorps Aviation, and we restore World War II airplanes here, and I'll show you around a little bit. This is a wing or set of wings from a Stinson L5, which was a World War II liaison airplane. Liaison airplanes were used kind of on the front combat lines, and they were an off-airport airplane, so people could hop in the airplane and go fly up to the front combat zone and land out in a field somewhere. And so they were a two-place airplane, and the wings on this particular airplane were built from wood. During the war, the small airplanes were required by the government to use wood in the construction, and because they wanted to conserve aluminum for the fighters and the bombers. So airplane is all built from Sitka spruce and mahogany plywood, and we use Sitka spruce because it's very lightweight but yet strong, and it has a very fine, perfect grain, very few knots. And one comes from one place, and that's Sitka, Alaska. Of course, that's where it gets its name. So it's an aircraft grade, and all the plywoods that we use and woods are aircraft grade, so they're graded.
Alaska has the only kind of wood like this? Why does it come from Alaska?
Yeah, it comes from Alaska because that's where this particular spruce tree grows nice and straight and tall, and has, you know, when it grows in a cold weather area, the rings are tighter and because of the slower growing season, so that makes a stronger wood. So it's graded, the wood is graded from aircraft grade as the top, and then it goes to spars for boats, and then it goes down to musical instruments, and then down from there. So that's how the wood is graded. So it is a little bit more expensive because it's premium grade wood. So we have to cut and shape the wood to make the wings, and it's kind of like a model airplane, a radio controlled airplane built from wood. It's similar construction, just a little bigger and a little different types of wood, but there's some special techniques that have to be used and thought about when you're building a wing for an airplane, and so we do all that here. So this is a rib on the front of the L5 wing, and you can see some of the things. These little strips here are actually laminated and curved, so we have to steam the wood, and which we had to make special tools for in this particular shape, and steam it and bend it and let it dry, and then laminate it together to create this shape, and then that's glued onto the rib, and then finally finished with a router template, so it has a perfect shape to it.
What does that piece do? Strengthen it or something?
Yeah, this is the nose rib. So at this particular location, the plywood is glued over the top here, and then on this wing there it has what's called a slat, which is it's an area of the wing where the air is allowed to travel through to help the wing continue to fly at low speeds. And so that's what this area here is. Plywood goes over here, and that's and there's another piece that comes on top here, and that allows the slot or slat to allow air to go through there. So this is kind of several pieces on this particular rib. But there's actually the wing is, like I said, predominantly spruce here and mahogany plywood, but these particular pieces are actually poplar. And poplar is a little bit heavier than spruce, but it's stronger. So they decided to use poplar in this area for a little more strength. And then this particular block, there's a bolt that will go through here, and so they made that out of maple, actual hardwood. But typically we use spruce because again it's strong and very light.
Why the mahogany?
The mahogany, plywood, you know, I'm not sure exactly why they use mahogany, but it's a mahogany and actually birch on the inside plywood, and that's most grades of plywood for aircraft are of mahogany, birch type of a grade. Again, there's a lot of thought into the weight of the material. You could build a wing out of oak and it'd be really strong, but it would weigh twice as much as this wing would weigh, or probably more than that. So this is kind of the corner where we do our research on the projects, and we have, for all of the airplanes that we work on, we have microfilm, and that microfilm was all of the engineering drawings that were used in the 1940s for manufacturing the airplanes. And during the war, the government required the manufacturers to take all of their drawings and have them photographed and put onto microfilm, so that subcontractors and repair stations around the world had the drawings available to them. So fortunately, people have saved those drawings, and so we still have copies of all the original drawings, blueprints for the details of every airplane. And we've now since taken those microfilm drawings and we've put them on the computer, so we can get through them and find stuff quite a bit faster, a lot faster when it's on the computer. We still have the microfilm, the hard roll, because in some cases we might lose a little detail with what we're looking at. But you can see this is the microfilm index. So we would use this sheet to find a part number here. Just take this one example. It's on roll P97, that particular part number. So we might come over here and go, and we'll find P97.
Okay, let me hold that drawing.
This is actually P87, but you get the idea. We can pull up the drawing, and this gives us all the details for making that part. And so we use these drawings on a daily basis. Every part that we pick up and disassemble and re-restore, we refer to these drawings to make sure that the dimensions are correct, and get any kind of information like that we might need. There's all sorts of different...
Where did you get all these drawings from?
Well, they originally, the Smithsonian is the best place to find original rolls, and you can actually call them, and they will make a copy of their microfilm and send them to you. They charge you a little bit, so that's a common place for us to get the film from. In some cases, people have already found a copy, and they'll share them with us or things to that effect. But so you can see we have all the information we need here on the microfilm and on the drawings. Sometimes the challenge with that is finding what you need in the film, and making sure that the particular airplane you're working on applies to the drawing you're looking at, or vice versa. So we actually organize the whole airplane. You can see that up on the wall here. Here's a chart that we've created on this particular airplane that we're restoring right now. These are all the major assemblies.
Which airplane is that?
This is for Sierra Sioux P-51 Mustang, and this is what's called a bill of materials sheet or part number tree, and it's what the manufacturer, which was North American Aviation, it's what they created when they were manufacturing the airplane. So we actually follow this chart and we use it in the same way, in that this for example is the complete fuselage, and then it takes these two parts to make the complete fuselage, and that's broke down over to here, which is fuselage rear and fuselage front. And so it's just, that's the way that the airplane would have traveled through the factory. In other words, they would have made all of these components here and then assembled them to make this one component here. And they would have taken all those assemblies here and they made this, plus those assemblies made this assembly, and you can see how that all works. So it just breaks it down kind of like a Christmas tree. So we use that on a daily basis to help us locate the drawings and make sure that we have every detail of the restoration correct. Okay, this is the horizontal stabilizer for the P-51 project Sierra Sioux, and you can see that it's in process going back together right now. It was all disassembled. Some of the parts required replacement because of either cracks or corrosion or various things like that. And so these are new manufactured parts that are reinstalled, and we're using original finishes kind of in every respect in the way this is going back together. You can see how there's 3 different colors here that are used, and that was the zinc chromate primer. And today there's only one manufacturer that makes zinc chromate primer anymore out of California. So there's one source. So that's the original paint, exact same stuff that was used in 1945. The colors are different because they had different tints. They actually started adding, they would add some paint to their yellow zinc chromate. That was the natural color of it, so you see that kind of the most. But they would add black paint so they could see they had a different color when they might paint 2 coats on it. And what ended up happening in the factory was that if they were out of yellow, they would just grab the can of green and spray the part with that green because they didn't have time to wait for more yellow to come along. So what ended up happening was there was kind of a random mix of colors between this color green and this color green and this yellow. So normally we would take when we're restoring an airplane to make it look very nice, we would take and paint that particular part very carefully and make sure there was no runs and it had a very even coat and all that stuff, so it was very attractive. In this case, with this particular airplane, we're trying to be very authentic. And in the factory, they actually took this rib and they dipped it in they had massive containers full of this paint, and they would dip the parts, so when they came out they would have runs on the part, and we've done the same thing to make sure that it looks exactly the way it was when it came out of the factory in 1945. So, but also the horizontal stabilizer, you know, we have to make a fixture here to hold this stabilizer when we take it apart and go back together again. All these points are critical that they're in the right locations.
Did you have to make these jigs yourself here?
So we've designed and made these jigs. There are some, of course the drawings that we refer to give you those particular points exactly where they should be. So we use the drawings and we use some photos that we've seen of original tools, and we use the CNC machine back there to make these parts so they're precision. And so yes, we make these tools. Before we take the component apart, we have to make a tool or a fixture to put it back together again. And that's the case, down to each individual part. Sometimes before you can take it apart, you have to make a tool so you can put it back together again and it fits the way it should. So this is a vertical stabilizer, and very similar to the horizontal stabilizer. Again, we have to make a tool to assemble it, and it's in process of going back together. Again, right now we're working on the finish on the skins. So once the skins are ready, then it'll be able to be riveted together. But again, you can see every rivet comes out of the airplane, and every rivet will have to go back in again. So we have shelves organized with the different components. You can see that each shelf is labeled, so we stay organized, so everything gets back to where it should be. As this gets built up, of course, fewer and fewer parts are on the shelf. We have books that we actually record every part that goes into the airplane. Whether when the restoration is finished, we'll know if that part was original, in other words, it came out of the factory in 1945, or it might have been a replacement, or if we had to repair that part. So there'll be a complete documentation of every part in this airplane when it's all finished. So this is the elevator off of the P-51 Sierra Sioux, and it's also in the process of being reassembled here. And so it's back in the fixture, and you can see that we're using these clecos that holds it together before we put the rivet in. So you can see we use these special pliers, and that goes in the hole, and then when you release it, it clamps it, and it clamps it tight. So what we'll do is there'll be a cleco in the hole, and we'll put a rivet right next to it, and we'll rivet these holes, and then we can remove the cleco and put the rivet in place of the cleco, and then pretty soon the whole assembly is assembled. So that's what these little copper looking guys are. There's different colors to identify the size hole that they hold. This is another example of some tooling that we're making. This is going to be a machine for applying a rubber stamp that was originally on the airplane. You can see this is an original panel off the airplane that was just simply removed, and we have to reproduce that stamp so we can reapply it to the skin, because the original skin had these stamps that were marked on them. So that's what's going on here. So we have to draw that stamp on the computer. You can see here's kind of a little sample as we're working on it to show that it's exactly the same. And then we reproduce that into a rubber stamp here, and then that stamp gets glued onto this wheel, and then that wheel will go into this machine here and reapply the stamp onto the big sheets of aluminum, just like they were in World War II. So when we're restoring these airplanes, we use some modern technology to help us rebuild the parts and manufacture tooling that allows us to complete the restoration. And this is a CNC machine, which means that our machinist, Dan Matichek, he takes his computer and uses original drawings, and he draws a part or a tool on his computer, and then using that information he can program this machine, and it will go around and cut out parts out of metal, or in some cases we use it for cutting plastics and woods and things like that. But it makes precision holes fairly easily. Back during World War II, they would have had to do the same processes on a hand machine, where they had hand cranks, and they had to use measuring tools to verify that they cranked the right number of turns on that machine that was cutting the parts. And so it was very tedious, and the solution for them was to have 10 different machines. So every step in the process the part can just simply be passed down the assembly line. So there's only one process per machine. Obviously today with a machine like this, we can do, you know, 10, 15, 100 or more. There's really no limit to the processes with the same machine. So it makes things a lot more efficient for us and allows us to do a really nice job when we're restoring these parts. So these are the original skins off the airplane, and over the years the aluminum had been kind of dented and scratched and things like that just from normal wear and tear. So we spent a lot of time salvaging these parts and carefully removing the dents and the small scratches, and we want to try and save as much of the airplane as possible. So we spent a lot of time, you know, actually repolishing these parts, and the idea is to bring it back to the original finish, just exactly the way it would look like in spring of 1945. So this is a skin off of the horizontal stabilizer that you saw in the tool in the fixture earlier, and the guys are working on restoring that skin again back to that original finish, removing all the little scratches and things like that. So right now they're working on polishing and buffing that out, and wet sanding with real fine sandpaper to remove those scratches. You can see all the particular holes in here are where the rivets go, and you can see that those holes are all countersunk. So each hole you see is a rivet, so you can see there's a lot of rivets that hold all this together, and they'll all have to get put back in again to reassemble it. So we with the rivets we go through a lot of detail. We actually had rivets made to the 1945 specification. That those rivets at that time were a different color, and they had well, they were actually, it's what they didn't have that was special. They didn't have the marking from the manufacturer in the head. At that time period, there was a mark that identified the type of material and the strength of the rivet, but it didn't have the manufacturer's logo in there. So today we had rivets made to the 1945 specification. So the rivets are the correct color and the correct marking on the head, and it's all those things take a little bit extra time in the restoration to make sure it's just right. So this kind of shows the rivets and the finite detail of the restoration. In my left hand here, this rivet is a modern rivet, and you can see that little R that's stamped down in it below the dot. That's the manufacturer logo. That's forged into the head of the rivet, and you can see the color is just a little bit different, gold color rather than a yellow color, yellow green like this in my right hand. And this is an original rivet from 1945, and so we actually had rivets made so they didn't have the logo in the head of the rivet, and they had the proper finish for 1945 on the rivet. So this is the fuselage and tail cone, we call it, for Sierra Sioux, and we've stripped all the paint off of it. The paint, it was painted in the 70s, and we removed that paint so that we can see all the rivets and the different parts, and it's getting ready to be disassembled. Dan, the machinist I was talking about earlier, is in the process of making the fixture to hold this while we take it apart and restore it. So as soon as that's finished, all the rivets will come out, and it'll go back together again and look like the other components you saw earlier. Same with the fuselage. That'll be after the tail cone, and they're going to strip the paint off, and that's allowed us to kind of look at everything and just get a brief idea of the condition of the parts. And so once we have a fixture made, all the rivets will come out, and all the parts cleaned and inspected and reinstalled.
How'd you get the inside, or what are you doing to the inside to get the zinc chromate off?
Well, we've just used a paint stripper to remove the paint that was painted on it in the 70s, and that just allowed us to get the bulk of the paint off so that we could see the individual rivets, so that they can be removed so it can be disassembled. You can see some of the parts. This particular parts, you can see corrosion on it, so that part will have to be replaced because it's too far damaged. So that's the things that we're looking for, and the reasons that we disassemble an airplane and restore it. So this is a upcoming project. It is a Canadian-built Warbird, which was the Canadian version of our AT-6 Texan, which was a common advanced trainer during World War II. And this airplane the restoration is about 80% complete on it, and we'll be finishing the last 20%. And so this fuselage and all what you see here has already been restored and ready to go. That's why we have it covered up with plastic so we don't get it dirty in the meantime.
That's the wings for it?
The wings next door, the wings next to it here, those are for Sierra Sioux, the P-51 restoration project. So the wings for the Warbird are actually on the other side over there, and being worked on by an outside shop. So these are the wings for the Warbird project, and they're awaiting restoration. The paint has been removed from them, and they need some sheet metal work there. You can see there's a hole in the sheet metal, and so they'll get that skin will get replaced, and then the wings will get painted and reinstalled on the project. This is a drop tank that was used on the P-51 Mustang and the P-47 Thunderbolt and P-39 Air Cobra. It's kind of a universal drop tank, and that was attached to the bottom of the wing, and the pilot could release it if he got into combat with an enemy fighter, or he needed very extended range, and they would use the fuel out of there first, and then they would drop that tank to reduce the drag on the airplane, so that they could make it on a long mission without running out of fuel. So you can see this tank is, we just purchased this tank, and it's waiting restoration. So.
Who came up with the idea of having an aircraft restoration business? Does it just fall out of the sky, or a dream of you or your brothers, or what?
Well, it started for me with an interest in World War II airplanes, and then I had the ability to work for a fellow who had a collection in southern Minnesota, was able to gain experience with, particularly with World War II airplanes, and then about a year ago or so had the opportunity to move home to Bemidji, and joined up with a few other guys, and we started Aircorps Aviation in Bemidji. So.
And you restored aircraft someplace else before you got this going?
I did, yep. I'd been involved with a P-40 restoration that won Grand Champion at Oshkosh.
That was last year?
That was in 2006. 2007, finished a P-38 that was restored and brought to Oshkosh as well. And then last year, we finished another combat vet, P-51, and won Grand Champion at Oshkosh with that in 2011.
Now these airplanes belong to your customers. You don't go out and look for them yourself, do you?
Yep, right, correct. All these airplanes and projects are customers' projects. Yeah.
What do you have to look forward? What is coming in the next year or two?
Well, we have the Harvard project to finish. We have actually a couple more P-51 projects, a D model and a C model that we're preparing for next. So.
Good time to finish.
Yeah, right.
When you started this business, how did you go about finding the right people to help you?
It worked out that when we made the decision to move to Bemidji, Minnesota.
From where again?
Well, I had started working on World War II airplanes in Granite Falls, Minnesota, and then from there I went to Minneapolis and was there for about a year and helped with some other projects that were in Minneapolis, and then had the opportunity to actually join up in the business or bring on 3 other people who had a lot of Warbird experience, and we all got together and came up to Bemidji here.
How did you find these people? Just because you did?
Well, I'd worked with Mark Tisler, Dan Matichek, and Eric Trueblood. I'd worked with them with some projects at Tri-State Aviation. Okay. So they worked at Tri-State Aviation. Mark has restored airplanes for 20 plus years, and Dan almost 9 years, and Eric for about 5 or 6 years. And they worked in Wahpeton, North Dakota, and left there and decided to join up with me in Bemidji here. So.
A few weeks ago, the mayor of Bemidji, Dave Larson, came out for a tour of your factory. I think you expressed, or he did, an interest in having perhaps a museum for aviation at Bemidji Airport. Is that in discussion, or just an idea stage, or where is that?
Yeah, that's just an idea or dream. It'd be wonderful with this stuff to get it on so that the public could see it. I mean, that's the reason that the owners of these airplanes restore these airplanes, and it's they're part of American history. So we all like to share with the public what we're doing, and it takes a lot of work. So it'd be a shame just to keep it to ourselves.
Did the mayor indicate an interest in your dream?
Yeah, it sounds like he'd be interested in an idea like that. Yeah.
Well, let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
Now, once you have the plane all furbished, obviously you can't put the wings on here because you can't get out of the building. So how do you get it to the airport?
Well, the plan is when the airplane is ready to be assembled, that it'll go on a truck and be brought out to the airport, just like the way we got it here. It doesn't take very long actually to assemble the airplane in relative terms of the restoration. So if we don't have a particular building that we're finishing the restoration in at the airport, then that would be how we would do it.
Now, is there a test pilot, or is that the owner?
I haven't discussed that yet, but there's people that will do that kind of thing. So fly in and have lots of experience flying these airplanes and test fly the airplane.
During the building process, does the owner come up to see what stages you're in and inspect the aircraft as you go along?
Yeah, obviously the owners, this is they have a large interest in the restoration of the airplane. So the owners come up to the shop periodically when they can and follow the progress, and we try and keep them updated with the progress through photographs and emails and things like that, but they enjoy being part of the process and seeing the changes that have happened since the last time they visited.
How about test flight day? I assume he's here to watch it.
Oh yeah, that's always exciting, for everybody.
At some point in time, do you think you'd like to move from your facility here at the industrial park in Bemidji to the airport for the full operation?
Yeah, we're anxious to be able to be out at the Bemidji airport. That's one of the reasons we chose Bemidji as the location to grow this business. It's a beautiful airport, and the only challenge for us was that there wasn't a building out there that we could just move right into, and so for now we're at the industrial park, and as soon as we can figure out a way to build a building and get in at the airport, we'll do that.
Was the runway length a factor in choosing the airport?
Yeah, Bemidji's as far as the size of the airport is very nice because it's a very large runway, and actually built and improved to that size just after World War II, and there was Corsairs flying at Bemidji. So it's an ideal airport for these types of airplanes to be operated out of.
I hear that Bemidji has quite a history for World War II aircraft and training and flight operation. Wasn't Bemidji Airport initially a World War II training airport built during World War II?
Yeah, it was built, I think it was built, and I'm anxious to do some more research on this and find some more history. I'm sure there's some local people that could help me out with that, but it was used just kind of after World War II, I understand, by the Naval Reserve, and they had Corsairs based here in Bemidji, and we see some pictures of those, and love to hear some more stories about it.
Did you hear about the story of this aircraft which you're about to show on skis, landed on the ice in Lake Bemidji, pushed the ice down and shot the water out of the fishing dark houses, and the guys come running out of the shed because the water was shooting out of the hole? You haven't heard that story?
I haven't heard that story, no. That'd be a good one to hear.
Well,
yeah.
Bill over at the Woolen Mill's father, I think, was involved in that somehow.
Okay.
And that's where the picture hangs, and we'll get a
sure.
shot.
Yeah, I know they did do, I haven't heard that particular story, but they had, Bemidji, of course, is a good place for cold weather testing. So the military did use Bemidji and Bemidji Airport for cold weather testing, yeah.
Can you imagine being in a dark house fishing and the water
imagine.
comes shooting out of the hole with this big engine roar in the background?
Yeah.
You imagine, they said the guys were running from these fish houses.
I bet.
I wish there was a picture someplace.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you very much.
You bet, thanks.
At this point, I would have liked to have talked to Eric and Shad Hokoff here. Eric has got the glue brush and the blue gloves to explain what he's doing by putting the glue on this mahogany that's going to be the leading edge for the Stinson L5 wing. One, he was too busy to be talking to me at the time, and it was also just too noisy in the shop.
Hold it up against the spar. Yep. Okay, got it. Now our weed slid all the way your way. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's okay. Our lines are just a touch off from our skin growing. All this one right next. All the way past. All the way past. This one next to the edge. Yep. We'll go next to the edge. Right on it. Right on it.
What are you working on, Eric?
Just kind of organizing the rebuild of the tail cone for the aircraft. The microfilm is deteriorated so bad that the bill of materials for that particular component is ineligible. Well, you can't even read it.
Yeah, well, you can't read it, so what do you do in that case?
What we'll do is we'll print out in a 42-inch print the various drawings, or the major drawing, and you can come back here and have to reference back and forth. So this -6 longeron left hand, 1 required, -7 longeron right hand, 1 required. If you go back to the book here, you've got your -6, which you can't read, -7 that you can't read, but you can reference back and bring it all together here. And then what we'll do is put it into a book here to kind of track our work on that actual component. So if we've cleaned, inspected, whether it requires replacement, repaired it, reinstalled it, and then any of the notes that we have on each of the parts. So we can actually go back and trace each of the parts that are or have been used in the airplane and what we've done to them.
That sounds like it's time consuming because you can't read the print.
Yeah. Yeah, the microfilm, the problem has been that over time it's not made to hold up over 65 years, and despite the fact that it's been digitized and that it's readily available on a computer, it's the condition of the microfilm has just increasingly become worse and worse over time.
They digitized it from the microfilm, so it isn't really better on the computer then.
Right, and that's part of the kind of the inherent problem is this film has been duplicated, 4 or 5 times over the life of it, and as it's been duplicated, it loses about 8 to 10% of its image quality.
So then they've scanned the poor version of the microfilm and put it on the computer, so it's not much better. So,
and it's just really one of the only versions of the particular late film that's available. So you just got to work with what we've got.
How do you get the film? Is it they make you a copy?
They do. They'll make you a duplicate of that particular roll or film.
So it's duplicated. Now, who's they?
Either the National Archives, Smithsonian, just one of the entities that has.
Okay, not the aircraft manufacturer from.
Right. North American would have produced the film and organized it onto rolls, and then it would have went to one of our archival
sources.
Organizations.
Okay. For some reason, I just thought you'd call up the manufacturer and they had them in their file. It doesn't work that way, does it?
Doesn't work that way. It'd be nice if it could.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
So these are Zeus fasteners. They're quarter turn, quick release fasteners. We're taking them out to blast them and replate them. And I'm just marking the lengths so we get them back in the right spot. Got 100 of them now. You can get it, pop them out. We've tried to make.
Should I step back, or am I going to be?
Oh, you're right. We've tried to make fancy tools to drill them out and everything, and no improvement on an old pair of side cutters.
Might be a good thing.
Well, the other option is
Can I go out?
Yeah, I'm really not doing it here.
I got weight here anyway.
Over a rail, you can go forward. What's that? Okay, it's 2 legs, right? Yes, right. Done?
Okay, yeah, that'll work.
Did you pull this whole thing apart?
Yeah.
Every piece had to come off?
Started off, we were just going to try to make it, just patch it up and make it go, but the more we looked at it, the wiring was bad and there was rust in the frame. And
So you're telling me that every piece on you had to come off one at a time to be, I mean, take it off one at a time so you know where it goes back in again.
Well, you took it off in sections, like big shelf pieces in one section, but then after that we just tore it clear down to the bare frame. And then
Do you have any spare parts left over?
there's always a couple. You always lose something and you order 3 more.
Once the airplane was secured to the trailer, out the back door, around to the front door, on a cold winter Minnesota day with blue sky. It wasn't that cold, actually. It was above 0 at least.
Want to hug this side? You're alright, we'll just yell if you're getting close to the tail.
Straight back and put it pick it off, right?
Yeah, we want to hug this side. I think we're going to have to put the tail up in front of this beam here in order to get it off,
We
right?
can close the garage doorways.
Well, we're going to go real high to get off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or back into you.
Want to keep coming all the way?
Good.
They could go down with the door instead of
Well, that's good. But it's okay.
You got to get close to this airplane to really appreciate the superb workmanship. Can you imagine taking all this apart and getting it back together and not have one piece left over? I couldn't do it, but these guys can. It's a work of art, and I can see why the owner is excited about coming here once in a while just to see what the progress is. Before you put all the skin on the side of the airplane, it's really kind of fun just to walk slowly around and look at everything. Of course, you have to be an aviation enthusiast to do that.
But come straight forward. Good. And turn. Want it over here?
Yeah, I guess I don't know where we want it exactly.
Want to hug the side? Smaller back there. Center section right there. Yeah. Right here, good job. Oh. Yeah, that's a very cool thing. Alright, I want to use some launch number.
Mark, some questions. Why did you move the airplane from the back in here? Obviously you're going to work on it. What has to be done in here you couldn't do in the back?
Well, I guess this area is kind of sort of our called final assembly area. It's where all the hardware is and that type of stuff. So kind of a more logical place to put it to finish it. And if we put the tail on it, we can't get it out the back door. So this door up front is
You
wider,
can,
so
okay.
We'll end up putting all the tail on it in the wing. And
The whole, what about the wing?
well, we'll put the center section part of the wing underneath it, so it'll be all on all three wheels, and that way we can roll the whole airplane out the door, get it on a trailer to take it to the
And this piece here goes, what is it? Where's it go?
This is the center section, the center wing section. It goes underneath the cockpit.
Okay.
So you're looking at the bottom side of it where the fuel tanks and the landing gear go in.
Now once you put the wing underneath, you can't get at this here, I assume.
Yeah, it's much harder. You know, that's why the factory built in this way, that you can work real easily along the side of the airplane and put all the systems in it. And then when you're done with that, done with the center section, you just bolt the two together, and there's a couple of connections for the hydraulic lines, the brakes, two electrical plugs, and it makes it pretty simple to attach the two pieces together. And then it's mobile, it's on all three wheels at that point for rolling around.
Okay, that makes sense then.
In 2011, Aircorps Aviation refurbished a P-51 and brought it to the largest air show in the U.S., AirVenture at Oshkosh, and won Grand Champion for the best restored P-51. And this is the crew that put it all together, refurbishing the P-51 and antique airplanes. Aircorps Aviation.